Good morning, my Real News Midday TV family. Thank you so much for tuning in this morning, and I'm wishing for everyone a wonderful and a productive day. And in the news this morning, man shot dead by police after allegedly killing cousin in Kingston. A man was shot dead by police after allegedly fatally stabbing his female cousin on Sunday in Raytown, Kingston. The dead man has so far been identified as Rashad, while his deceased relative is said to be 43-year-old Nisha Williams. It is understood that sometime after 3 p.m., Ras had stabbed Williams, who was then rushed to hospital where she was pronounced dead. The police were alerted, and during their attempt to apprehend the suspect, they were reportedly attacked, resulting in the lawman fatally shooting the man. Crash that left 5 dead, described as the most devastating in public transportation sector. Up to yesterday, the public transportation sector was still mourning the loss of 4 members among 5 people killed in last week's tragic Trelawney crash, including Simone Simpson Minot, who ironically chaired an outreach committee for deceased operators before her own demise. The son of an operator who was also on the ill-fated vehicle but escaped with minor injuries, rounded off the 5 who perished in last Sunday's horrific early morning crash on the Salt Marsh Trelawney roadway. The deceased include Minot's partner, 42-year-old Dwayne Campbell, 22-year-old Akeem Roberts, Quanardo Owens, and Horace Tollo, all of St. Catherine addresses. Up to Friday, 1 of the 7 who sustained physical injuries and were hospitalized remained in hospital. Director of Communication of the All Voice Route Taxi Association, Lorraine Finnegan, and the President of the Transport Operators Development Sustainable Services, Edgerton Newman, who both visited the crash site later last week, where they laid flowers and observed a moment of silence, described the incident as the most mournful recorded in the sector in modern history. Over the last 4 years, we have been losing operators in accidents and by the gun. But I can tell you clearly, it is the first we had of the loss of lives of owners and operators in the sector that have the sector mourning the way it has been, bemoaned a distraught Finnegan. Some of our operators have been brutally murdered over the last 5 years. In 2023, we had up to 69 operators that were murdered, but we have never had the level of mourning that we are having now. So far, from all indications, 4 of the deceased are owners and operators, and the other one is the son of an owner and operator, he added. Newman concurred that the crash is one of the worst tragedies to beset the sector. Since last Sunday, it has been a mournful occasion for us here in the public transport sector, and that is why we traveled all the way from Kingston to come to the very spot where our colleagues have left us, Newman said. He argued that the tragedy was compounded by the loss of Minot, who had been a tower of strength in the sector, particularly in the area of social welfare. We are sad, and because of her position, as President Finnegan told you, because of her position in the transport sector as a person who was in charge of the social welfare of operators, we could not hold back but had to be here and to ensure that her position remains intact, because many of our operators perish without the support for their family, Newman added. Finnegan said Minot has been a stalwart in the sector. I must tell you that in 2022, we set up an outreach committee based on the number of deaths of our operators, and when you check, they were the breadwinners of the family. So we set up this outreach committee, and she was the chairperson for it, he explained. And when there's a need, even when the operators don't contribute, Simone would go into her personal funds and donate it to families of the deceased. I remember on one occasion, an entire family was burnt out in East Kingston. When I called her, she said, "Mr. Finnegan, I can't come to Kingston, meet me in Spanish Town." That's where she lived and worked. When I got there were several bags of groceries, several bags of children's clothes and shoes. So we have missed a stalwart, a committed member of the public transportation sector, and that is one of the reasons why it is so mournful to us, he added. Mayor of Falmouth, Councillor C. Junior Gager, who expressed a condolence to the family members, friends and colleagues of the deceased, used the occasion to urge motorists to desist from speeding on the roadways. According to the police, about 2:30 a.m. on Sunday, July 6, a Toyota Hiace with mostly public transportation stakeholders was en route to Hanover for a colleague's all-white birthday party when, upon reaching a section of Salt Marsh, the vehicle veered across the road and flipped for about 50 meters down in palm trees until it crashed into a concrete utility pole, the impact sending some of the occupants flying from the vehicle. Turn yourself in, pastor urges the killers. A minister of religion is calling for the murderers of returning resident Simon Blanchard to turn themselves in. You took leave of your senses on June 26. Know that your senses have returned. I call on you to have justice done to your dastardly deed. You plunged a sharp instrument into the body of a man who had a heart of gold. I borrow a line from Shakespeare. This was the most unkindest cut of all. I beseech you, save the police to have to find you. Call a lawyer and let them take you in, so the law will have its course, said Reverend Wayne Smith as he delivered the sermon at Blanchard's Thanksgiving service on Friday at the Kettering Baptist Church in Trelawney. Blanchard, 60, was found lying outside his gate at Retreat Heights in a pool of blood on June 26. Dr. Michael Godfrey, who discovered his body, spoke glowingly of his deceased friend and neighbor. Simon was such a kind and gentle person. He was always in his garden looking after his flowers and his fruit trees. Anybody passing by would be offered some mangoes. Right now, the yard is eerie. All the mangoes are falling to the ground with no one to pick them up and share them like Simon did, he said. Blanchard's brother, Hugh, delivered the eulogy. He noted that his brother was born in Danieltown but left Jamaica at an early age as his parents went back to England. His love for Jamaica never died, and he watched the clock to see when he would become eligible for retirement. The moment he reached the magical 20 years of service, he sold his house and bought his dream house in Retreat, he said. He was always doing some work on the house. When he visited England, it was just for 2 weeks. We will miss him greatly. Yvette Sims, a member of the Retreat Heights community group, said that Blanchard will never be forgotten. He replaced all the street signs in the community and was known for beautifying the area. You could hear the sound of a lawnmower at work, and you did not have to look. You knew it was Simon taking care of the hedges. He was such a wonderful soul who did not deserve to die like that, she said. Blanchard's body will be cremated at a later date. Savannah Mayor wants Mackenzie to release funds for drain cleaning. Savannah Lamar Mayor Danry Delancey is calling for the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development to immediately release funds from its parochial revenue fund to address the concerns which have left several communities vulnerable going into the peak of the Atlantic hurricane season. The hurricane season runs from June to November, and the local governments have been tasked with ensuring community readiness amid the forecast of increased hurricane activity this year. Delancey, the chairman of the Westmoreland Municipal Corporation, who was speaking at Thursday's monthly meeting of the WMC, said municipal corporations were advised to use May and June allocations for emergency preparation works. However, up to mid-July, Westmoreland was still awaiting those funds. We continue to face challenges in the parish and the challenges at the corporation, said Delancey. At a recent meeting, some of my councillors were lamenting the fact that it is now the month of July, and we were told by the Honourable Minister Desmond Mackenzie that we should be using May and June allocations in preparation for the hurricane season, and we are still yet to see the June's PRF provision. A number of our drains, not just in the town of Savannah Lamar, but across the parish, are badly in need of cleaning. But as we all know, such activities cannot be carried out without funding, added Delancey. Using a biblical analogy to underscore the severity of the resource shortfall, which is basically calling on them to use less resource to do more, Delancey went into the Old Testament. This is tantamount to the Egyptians taking away the straw from the children of Israel and telling them to make the same number of bricks or even more, while they were not being provided with the straw, he said. Delancey went on to warn that the failure to carry out the critical drain cleaning works could lead to flooding, loss of property, and possibly lives. We don't want to have a scenario wherein we experience heavy rainfall and then, as a result of this, our drains are not being in a condition to carry off this excess water, we end up losing lives and property, he said. Delancey also criticized the discontinuation of a dedicated special drain cleaning fund that was traditionally made available by May, explaining that municipalities are now forced to dip into their limited PRF-based allocations to address that situation. I have been told to use our PRF to do so, and I have a problem with using the PRF to do so if we are not getting the allocation from the ministry, he noted. Guys, thanks for watching. Please join us this afternoon at 2 p.m. for another news update.